Hello and welcome to English 3026 Syntax, Citation, and Analysis. I'm Tora Brilo. I'm an associate professor in the English department. I specialize in British Romanticism and 18th century literary studies, but I also work on the history of the book and other kinds of media technologies before the digital age. And so that makes me well suited to teach a class that's about the technologies of writing and how writing is put together. So let's get started, and I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of what the course is going to be about. I'm going to talk about some of the foundational ideas that govern this class. And so you may want to listen to this and look at these slides again a couple of times, because I think that they will help you to sort of get situated in what we'll be talking about. This class is about the fact that writing is a technology. For human beings, speech is a natural thing that we do. It's what we call constitutive, meaning it's part of our makeup. So when people describe our species, they include our capacity for communicating with one another through this complicated vocalization that we call speech and language. So syntax, the word that is the first word in the class, pertains to the arrangement of words. And in natural speech, our brains are designed such that we absorb the language that's around us. Language is a pre-existing system that humans are designed to absorb. So it's really important to know that language is natural, and therefore syntax is natural. And this is why when you took a grammar class in, say, high school or maybe in middle school, you were kind of good at it. You always have a sort of basic idea of how syntax works, how words and phrases go together, because you're used to using language all the time. The problem, though, is that while speech is natural, writing is not. Writing is a technology, and it's a technology that we have developed as a species that allows our speech to travel across time and distance. So I'll say that again because it's so important. Writing is the technology that allows speech, which is natural to humans, to travel across time and distance. So right now, only using your body, all you can do in order to get speech to travel across distance is to shout. We have a sort of limit of how much space our speech can travel. If we want our speech to travel across time, well, we can't, because it's affixed to the specific moment of the utterance, right? Your mouth does a certain thing, your vocal cords do a certain thing, your lungs and your diaphragm do a certain thing, and when that thing is over, the speech is done. So if you want an idea to last a long time, then the way to do that is to make some visual marks that represent the sounds that you make. Written language is a system of visual marks that allow us to replicate those sounds far away. So written language has been standardized since its invention over thousands of years. That means that the syntax of writing, the way words to go together, is not natural. So you have an automatic sense of how syntax works because you have natural speech. But we've developed this technology that takes syntax out of our bodies, out of the specific moment of utterance, and moved them across time. Okay? And because we have that, we therefore need a system of standardization so that people can read this, so that your speech can be reproduced, say in this class when I read your papers. Writing has its own set of rules. Now, while this is not natural, writing does restructure our consciousness. Writing makes us think in a way that we could not think if we did not understand this technology. And so here's an example of that. So this is just a quick test that gives you a sense of the differences between, say, a culture or a person who knows how to write and understands the technology of writing versus a person who does not, right? And so the goal is to look at these 4 pictures and match 3 of them up. In general, my inclination, and probably yours as well, is to match the tools up. So a hatchet and a screwdriver and a saw are different fundamentally from a tree, right? Because those are all tools that hands can use. But we think that way because our brains have been structured to think categorically. Someone from an oral culture would look at these pictures, and in general, they would categorize the screwdriver as the thing that is not like the other, because both the axe and the saw can be applied to the tree. So oral thinking tends to be relational. And if you think about the way memory works, that makes some sense. Because when you're trying to remember something and you can't write it down, the way you do that is oftentimes to make some kind of association up. If you're taking a test, say a vocabulary test, and you need to remember the definitions of words, you might think up a word that is close in association with the first word. When I'm trying to remember people's names, I take somebody whose name I know, and I imagine the two of them in an all-out fight. And I just imagine them scrapping like crazy, and that helps me to remember the name, because when I can't write something down, I tend to think associationally. So categorical thinking is a result of the restructuring of our whole culture and our own consciousness based on the idea that we can produce categories, and producing categories happens because we can write lists. So just hold on to this idea, because it's a very important one, the difference between categorical thinking and associational thinking. Let's just talk a little bit about ways to think about the technology that is writing. So I already said that syntax is a way of thinking about the way things go together, right? It's about the order of words that produce meaning. So that established order is systematized in language itself. In writing, syntax has been systematized over time through patterns of grammar and style, right? So what is grammar? Grammar is the name and function of specific units of syntactical meaning. For example, sentences have always a subject and a verb, right? So those 2 units are grammatical units, but they also happen to be syntactical units because you need them in order to make basic units of meaning. And of course, we'll talk lots more about this. Now, style is about specific choices of vocabulary and syntax that will signify some kind of an audience. When we write in a particular style, it means that we understand that we're writing for a particular audience. When we speak in a particular style, and this may be something like code switching, where you speak one way with your family and another way with people you know outside of your very close community. It might be something like workplace diction versus how you would speak in a more public kind of thing. In this class, we're using style to think about 2 kind of genres of writing. We'll be talking about writing for the public, writing for a large audience, and then writing for a specialized audience. And in this class, again, the specialized audience will be, because this is an English class, pretty specific to the specialized audience of the discipline of English or literary studies. Okay, so syntax, grammar, and style are ways that we can start to think about the technology that is writing and give that some terms. And so what we'll be doing in this class is to learn these grammatical terms And those terms will help us to talk about the technical aspects of writing. Once you understand what subjects and verbs do, you start to be able to recognize and deploy them in different ways. You begin to be able to recognize how they are grammatically subordinated sometimes and what that might mean for complex and compound sentences that have a kind of complicated grammatical use to them, and what is the right way to put those things together. We're also going to use grammar to analyze poetry, and this is different from the way many English classes address poetry. They're oftentimes interested in style and not necessarily grammar, but I want to teach you a way to understand the way poetry works and how it's put together that will be useful to you in other classes. And then we're going to pay attention to the differences between the academic style and a kind of more popular style of a blog. What are the sort of stylistic markers of academic writing versus popular writing? And so you'll be keeping a blog, and that blog will be quite meta because it'll be about what you're learning in the class. And then finally, we're going to look at the reasoning behind citation and citation styles. So as we go along, you'll be starting to look at some different kinds of research and research techniques. You'll also be building a kind of conversation between other people who are talking about the same things that you're talking about. Because of that, you need to understand citation. But I also want you to be able to wield citation in a way that's pretty skillful. This class is kind of meta in a lot of ways, in as much as you'll be thinking about your own writing and attending really closely to your own writing, but at the same time, you'll be using the tools that you learn in order to analyze other people's writing. Just a sort of preview of what the kind of foundational ideas are in this class. Again, we're talking about writing as a technology, and therefore, because writing is this technology, we have sort of specific rules for how it works, and those rules have been codified over a long period of time. And you'll see that grammar is sort of an argument, but also a system of right and wrong. And I want you to learn that system and have a sense of how that system works and how you can use the vocabulary of that system in order to talk about your own writing and other writings in a new way. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the actual class in the specifics of the syllabus, and I will be giving you a tour of the Canvas site. So until then, I'll see you later.